Well, we are live once again. Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Akil Khalfani, and we are here looking at, talking about, and dealing with issues related to the campaign for this year, November 3rd. But really, I'm going to take we're going to be addressing um, healthcare, but I want to just take a moment to actually say that we need to focus on. I'm going to put a couple of videos up on this. I've been going around visiting post offices, supporting things, but I want us to just remember that ballots are going out on October the 5th. So you will have your ballots October the 5th. If you have not registered to vote, voter registration, or if you know people, voter registration is October the 13th is the last day. But it's also important for two other things. The first one is that October the 13th is important because you have got to, if you're changed your address, you need to make sure that you get your address change information in. And not only that, if your signature card is different, that I suggest that you get you do a new signature. If you did your signature card 10 of formerly incarcerated people to participate in the vote. You have the ability and the power to determine the reality and the outcome of this election. We need everybody to be engaged and involved for all seats, specifically involved in for U.S. the 10th congressional district. But even if you're outside, a lot of people are, sit on the border, right? If you're in the 9th or you're in the 11th, you're still in Newark, you're still in West Orange, you're still in Montclair. So you sit on the border, the fringe of the 10th district. So we are encouraging folks, regardless of the district, to be involved in voting. There's lots of ways that you can do that. You can mail your ballot in as soon as you get it or shortly thereafter. Make sure you check Khalfani for Congress. For the 10th district first. You can take it to the post office. You can not only take it to the post office, you can there are drop boxes. You can drop it in one of the drop boxes in your county. So there'll be county drop boxes all over. To be ADA compliant, there is going to be at least one polling place open in each municipality. And so therefore you can go to that place and also vote, maybe at town hall or something of that nature. So we're encouraging people to make sure that you know what's available for you to participate in and to actually be engaged. We have the power to, and we have the necessity to be engaged and to do what we have to elect people. People like myself running for Congress, other folks who are running for U.S. president, and any ballot issues. Make sure you get your ballot and find out what's what, and then we can change things. But we have to both register, and then we have to show up at the polls, or in this case, in the electronic polls, in your paper poll, and your ballot that's going to be in the mail. And make sure you spend some time going through it, because it can be a little tricky. there's two envelopes and there's places that have to be signed. And sometimes we look at it and we think that we're supposed to sign something and somebody else is supposed to sign it. If you're dropping something off for somebody, you can only do a certain number. I believe it is 3. I'll find out the exact number. So that you can't take a whole stack of ballots to the post office and mail them. Because then, well, not only to the post office, but to the county hall of records and do that, because it wouldn't be acceptable. So make sure you understand all the parameters that are necessary. We're going to have another talk as it gets closer to the time for voting. So probably sometime at the end of in the beginning of October, maybe that first week, we'll have a talk on voting, and I'll go over all the places to vote. So those are things that you can look at and look into. And this talk here, invite your friends, invite your family, invite your neighbors. This is a talk for us to engage in what is prudent for us to understand about the election, and what are the positions that I stand for in the election. What are the positions, and what are the things that we're going to be working on as we move through the process. So I encourage you to join me for that process, and we collectively will be able to change things. I'm just pulling up here so that we can have all the other places. We're trying to set it up, this talk also on WhatsApp. So I'm sorry, not WhatsApp, but on Instagram. So you can see it in Instagram as well. So we're here having a discussion. This is Akil Khalfani, and this is Let's Talk with Dr. Akil Khalfani. So we look forward to you joining us and having a fruitful discussion about the things that we're going to be dealing with. So today here, we're going to be addressing the issue of healthcare for all. Some may say Medicare for all. I think that as we're talking about this, the idea of Medicare for all is, I think we get tripped up on the terminology. And so I tend not to use Medicare for all, because then we get confused between Medicare and Medicaid, and who has access to what, and what does it mean to have access to one and not the other. And so my thing is that we just push for healthcare for all. And we've got to look at the numbers and the pros and cons. But the main thing is that when we look at healthcare for all, we've got to recognize that it's it's possible for us to change what's going on in America if we're truly engaged in the discourse, right? And truly engaged in the discourse on what does it mean to have Medicare for all, right? What does it mean for us to do something that's for somebody outside of ourselves? And that's the real concern and issue here, is that we want to make sure that we are looking outside our comfort zone and finding ways to provide services for everybody. And if you look around the world, in Canada and Europe, that everybody has access to healthcare, because you know why? The bottom line is that healthcare is really it's a fundamental human right, and we need to expand the possibility to access to healthcare, because it is a human right, because it should be accessible for everyone, and not just because you have money, not just because of what your zip code is, but because healthcare is the key to sustaining our society. And part of that, I think that we don't focus enough on, and that's preventative care. I think if we had a bigger focus on preventative care, then we would have really less healthcare that we have to talk about. And it's less expensive to talk about preventative care than healthcare on the backside. If you have a healthy populace, you're going to need less access to a diversity of medicines and medical procedures that are necessary for a population that's not healthy. And if we had a better promotion of a healthy society, of people, just walking, is a basic thing. If we encouraged a walking society, I spent time in different parts of the world, in South Africa, in China, in South Korea, um, uh, in different parts in the islands, and in Ghana, and people walk. People do lots of walking. Uh, Maybe part of it is through necessity, but that necessity also creates a healthier populace. And so we've got to find out ways to encourage and create a culture of good health and of healthy food choices and healthy options for things. And as we do those things, that I believe we're going to change the landscape of things. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll look at them. Let's see, I have a question here. Let's see, are you running for office and addressing real issues? Yes, James, I am running for U.S. Congress for the 10th Congressional District here in New Jersey. And as running for the 10th Congressional District in New Jersey, it also means that I'm running for Congress. Congress is a federal part of the federal government, so therefore that representation is someone who is going to be representing us throughout the country. And but my specific constituency is the folks in the 10th Congressional District in New Jersey. But I obviously will be addressing these issues that affect all Americans, and not only all Americans, but people across the world. And so we need to make sure that we make the right kinds of decisions, the right kind of educated decisions, and that we employ the resources that we have, the educational resources, all the expertise that we have. As a professor in sociology, I belong to lots of different associations, and I know that there's other associations outside of my discipline in all of the fields. And so there's a cadre of expertise in so many different areas that oftentimes I think those who are politicians and who are legislators don't always call on them. We call on people who are primarily within our process. That is, that within our what's the word I'm looking for? That are in our. If we were talking about politics, that people would be in our party, people who are of like mind. And as a scholar, and I sit on the editorial board for a journal. There's in the Association of Black Sociologists, I'm on the editorial board for the journal that they produce. And one of the things is that as a someone who's on a board for a journal, that you have to look at all the different ideas, and that there's lots of different journals that come out that have different positions. But there's a thing called a blind review, and that we don't get paid for reviewing articles, that process is one that we contribute to because we want the best thing to come out. And so my suggestion to us is that how do we do that in other realms, is that, and I'm saying that we need to think broadly about that, and that the places that we do it don't have to be limited, and we can think outside of our comfort zone and do those things. So back on healthcare reform and healthcare for all. I think that when we're talking about healthcare for all, we can go back and look at what's been called the Obamacare and see that some of the underlying tenets were there, but I think we've got to push it a little further. We've got to have something more akin to single payer model. We've got to have a model that is entrenched within the context of the federal government having a holistic process of engaging us as a populace and finding out how we can think about healthcare. Well, I don't even want to say healthcare, but think about um, the health of the people in a different way, right? Uh, if we were to do so, one of the most expensive elements of healthcare is that people go to the emergency, people who can't afford regular healthcare, that they go to the emergency room. And the emergency room, as we all know, is much more expensive than going to regular checkups. And so when people go to who can't afford regular checkups, and they go to the emergency room for things that other folks might go to their regular physician checkup for, then that costs the taxpayers for those particular places. And then when you look at hospitals that are not performing well, and the cost of drugs and the exorbitant cost of certain hospital related things, because these are profit making spaces, that's why we end up in a problem, because it's something that's related to profit making as opposed to caring for the people. And I think that's what we have to do. We've got to take uh, profit making out of, not that companies can't make profit, but they can't be, um, profit can't be the modality for dealing with the health of the American people. That is, that the health of the American people has to rest in the context of people having access to health, and that having access to that health in ways that provide them with great access to uh, doing well and being well, right? If we can't create a space where folks can do and be well, then I think that we've failed as a society, and we've got to come up with a better approach at addressing or providing for the people of our society. And we can. I believe that we can, if we step outside our comfort zones, if we are willing to um, be about and for the people. And those are the key measures that we've got to adopt. Um, Now, just before I go on, this is Akil Khalfani, here running for U.S. Congress. We're here talking about issues today, as we do every week at 8 o'clock on Thursday. So go out and tell somebody else, send a thing out saying, "I rock with Doc." "I rock with Doc" is our motto. So you can go to our website, which is www.akilkhalfani.com, which you just saw, or you can look at hashtag I rock with Doc. Also, irockwithdoc.com will take you also to our website. So we want you to come to either of those locations and visit our platform in detail. We have lots of information on there, and we're looking. This is the people's campaign, and we have to have the type of fervor, the type of drive and motivation. This is not the status quo will continue to be in office and where it is, whether it's the Republican Party or the aspects of the Democratic Party that are not moving us forward. We've got to come together and find a pathway that's going to bring in some progressive, transformative ideas for the people. And the only way we do that is that we've got to work and do and think outside the box. We've got to be comfortable with not being comfortable, and that's the key for this movement here. Is that we've got to be comfortable with not being comfortable. We've got to invite in the we got to invite in the folks who are not here, right? Who are not at the table. Who are the people who don't have access to healthcare, and what is their experience like? We've got to raise the question, right? I think it's our responsibility to um, to ask and answer those questions for them. That is, that we've got to come and say, we got to invite them to the table. So we need people, families who don't have access to healthcare, to come and talk to us about what does it mean not to have access, and what is the minimum that their health care that they need to be able to provide for their families. Because I understand, I'm not naive. I know we don't have unlimited funds, but we have to look at ways to expend the funds that we have and to redirect some funds in different ways that will help us to change how we do what's done. We got to be forward looking on that regard, and do things that are going to create um, ways for folks to participate that who don't, not that, but who don't participate today, or that is who don't have access to healthcare. It's not just about talking with hospitals or drug companies or with doctors. We need to talk to the folks who use the services, those who have access to wealth and those who don't have access to wealth, or those in between. What services have they had and what services have they not had? There's a plethora of studies out by sociologists and other folks who look at health disparities and try to get us to find out what does it mean for these disparities, why do they exist, and if we look at infant mortality, right? Why is infant mortality with African American women so high? The studies look at it and they talk about uh, looking at health, looking at socioeconomic status, looking at education, looking at zip codes, and still there are African American women who have higher infant mortality rates than others. The question is why, and what can be done to address it. And so part of that answer deals with stress, and that stress in part deals with racism and the stresses that they encounter because of those things. And there may be other stressing factors, and we need to look at those things and come up with solutions to talk about those things. The differentiation between races, so between African Americans, Latinos, European Americans, Asian Americans, and other groups, right? And then look at the difference between zip codes. How does your zip code determine your health outcome? How does it determine your life expectancy? How does it determine the other factors that look at your health? How does your culture, how does your family line impact those things, or contribute to them? And so we want to look comprehensively, maybe at some variables, that is characteristics that in the past we don't take in consideration. And I'm suggesting that we need to think broadly about what those characteristics are so that we can begin to uh, address them in ways that we haven't. And I think that's where we've failed, I believe, is that we have not come up with those solutions, those ideas that are comprehensive, or that represent all the different areas that people from which people come. So my suggestion is that we do that in a different way than what we've done to this point. And we can honestly address healthcare challenges in a diversity of ways. And when we do so, we're more thorough in our outcomes. We have to look at I think we need new assessments of the solutions. We need new assessments of the outcomes that are currently happening, and then that we'll get a new foundation for what healthcare for all looks like. One of the things about healthcare for all that I want us to think about is that we have to look at when people talk about Medicare for all, they're talking to a certain extent about a single payer plan, and that means maybe a variety of things to different audiences. And I think that the overall objective, though, is that there's a plan that the majority of people in American society can participate in, and at a rate that maybe varies by socioeconomic status, and that way it broadens the participation, because people maybe people at each level have to pay, but what they pay is different based on their socioeconomic status. And we would have to look at both. Um, uh, I think new variables to talk about where somebody, new indicators to talk about what that means, because I think we have to bring in not just when I talk about socioeconomic status, I'm not just talking about their income, but we also have to look at income and wealth. And although that's harder to identify and articulate sometimes, I think that we've got to come up with a new model, a new process for that, and that's going to put us at a better place to determine where people fit within the both the socioeconomic ladder and in their access to healthcare. A fairer way of talking about people's access to healthcare. Let's if there's any questions anybody has, please feel free to send them in the chat, and I'd be glad to address those questions. Um, Feel free. This is Dr. Khalfani, Akil Khalfani, who I'm running for U.S. Congress in New Jersey's 10th Congressional District. This is our weekly Let's Talk with Dr. Akil Khalfani talk. In the past, sometimes we have people who kind of interview me. We're going to do some more of those coming up. But I want us to think broadly about these. And we usually keep these short, like 30 minutes to 45 minutes. As we're here today, I want to just make sure that we're recognizing that one of the major things that we're talking about in terms of voting has to do with the post office. And we need the post office equipment to be restored, and postal workers to be paid and compensated and appreciated, and all of those kinds of things. One of the things we want with them is that if it means that there's a need to have enough money to pay them overtime so that they can deliver the mail. I know that we see the post office delivering mail sometimes on Sunday, and so that in whatever those times and days are that they're delivering mail, we need to let them know that we appreciate them. We see them as essential workers, and that the post office is key for ensuring that the vote happens in a fair and efficient manner. So then those sorting machines that had been removed and hopefully not destroyed need to be reinstalled in time for the election to happen, and for the postal service to be able to process the mail. You're talking about thousands of millions of pieces of mail, and so therefore we need to make sure that that information is that those resources are put back in ways that are accessible. A question, it says, what are your solutions for healthcare, rise of unemployment, national protests nationwide? Well, when you're talking about protests nationwide, I went over some of the things on healthcare. I'll work backwards on your request. The first one on the protest that I've been engaged in the protests. So I organized a justice and peace and justice march and rally, because we need to make sure that there's both peace and justice and equity. And right now, a lot of people are not experiencing that. When you can have someone who is shot in the back 7, 8 times, it doesn't merit that level of policing, that level of that was a matter for de-escalation, as opposed to a matter for using your gun as a first line of defense. And so that's an ongoing issue, and we don't see the same thing happening in other communities, right? So if that person unfortunately had been a white person, that the likelihood that that same scenario played itself out that way is not likely. And then we had the issue with the militia. Um, During a protest for that particular event, that particular shooting, that someone from the militia went out and shot people and killed people, and here we've got to realize that we're in very tense time, and we have no national leadership on this matter, and so then the um, the inkling of national leadership on it is one of further escalation as opposed to de-escalation. So to send troops into an area in Oregon or in Chicago or elsewhere, and people don't know who those troops are, that because they don't have proper insignia on, is problematic, is troubling. Are these militia individuals? Are they U.S. military? Are they undercover police? Are they FBI? Who are they? And we don't have answers to those questions. And so, therefore, from the executive branch, you see a escalation as opposed to a de-escalation. And so, from a congressional point, we need to bring that to task, and then provide leadership for uh, a de-escalation, but also and I spoke about this before, and that is a reform of the criminal justice system and reform of the policing that goes on in America, especially in urban communities, because we don't see the same thing in suburban communities as you do in urban communities. And the question is, why is it acceptable or perceived as acceptable, or customary, to have the level of brutality that's meted out in urban neighborhoods as opposed to other places? And so, in my opinion, is that that's not acceptable anymore. It hadn't been acceptable for many years. There was a protest. There were a set of speakers in the '70s, in the '80s, in the '90s. So and here we are in 2020, um, m- moving close to 21, and you still see these things occurring. And that's because we haven't had systemic change. We haven't had the types of laws and um, uh, the movement that is necessary to move that along. The other question was on healthcare. I can't remember what the second question was. Uh, What is your idea for a realistic solution to healthcare and a post-COVID expenses? Okay, that's a good question. I'll kind of combine this with the last question on my ideas about healthcare reform. As I was saying before, is that we need to have um, uh, a process where healthcare for all means that everyone has uh, access to healthcare based on their socioeconomic standing, and the cost that they would have to pay is determined by that. So, if a surgery supposedly costs, I don't know if it was a particular procedure and it was $10,000, let's just say, then that $10,000, that maybe there's a kind of a differentiated amount that people pay based on their socioeconomic position, that is reflective of their a certain percentage of their income and or livelihood that is different from other folks, and so then that would give us some way to address it, and not to say that and maybe that moves to a level where you go to the hospital and there's no cost for it. All the services are free. But if we look at stages in moving that in, I think that that's a stage through which we could move the process. And then if that is works for us, then we can look at another level of pushing it once we get a more people in Congress, in the House, and in the Senate to be willing to sign to pass the legislation necessary for free healthcare for all. I think that's what we need to move to, and that people go in and you can get what the types of services that you need, and we have to have that that obviously will be for U.S. citizens, and then you have other kinds of things that you have to look at in terms of other people, how others can participate in that healthcare system. And we need to look at international models, and we have the ability to do that. We have lots of expertise in scholars who can help us to amass the types of analysis that we need to do those things. The other question, if you could put the other question back up, the last question, the question before that. What are ideas about real estate for healthcare and post-COVID expense? So that the post-COVID expenses, I think that there's going to, first of all, the states that have been hit the hardest. I think that there needs to be a plan for the federal government to come in and financially help those states, whether it's New York and California, New Jersey, and other states coming on board now, who are having huge hits from the COVID situation financially because of the medical issues. Then I think that we need to look at those things and find out ways that we help to fund those states that have been hit the hardest, because then we can begin to come up with a better plan for how to address it. But then I think the other part is that there was some suggestions about there was modeling that was done before COVID-19 to address it. I think the Obama administration had talked about what to do if there was a pandemic, and then they had people who were in place for that. And then here, when the current administration came in, that they removed them. And so then we got to think about when that if that occurred, then we've got therein lies part of the fundamental problem. It's because you don't have the proper staffing in place to the leadership in place to develop a plan of action for doing that. And so then you got to have a more effective working relationship between the executive branch and Congress, because Congress is the one who's going to fund these things. And so with regard to the recovery from the pandemic, that we have got to look at where those resources have been expended the most, whether it was hospital beds or ventilators, PPE, that, it should never be a situation. I remember I had one of my students who is a nurse, and I went and bought PPE for them because they didn't have adequate supplies. And so, we've got to realize that there's got to be a different way, and that when there's a shortage on the municipal, county, state government, that is the reason why we have a federal government, is that we come in and we try to work together to solve problems, whether they're financial, political, or social. And I think that we're tied up in the idea of partisan politics. And so whether a state is perceived to be one thing or another, that the citizens of that state or the residents of that state are not given the consideration, because the executive branch has an issue with the governor, for instance, who is of a different party. And this has happened over the years. And we've got to bring an end to that kind of partisan politics But I think it takes leadership in Congress that maybe we don't have really playing itself out right now. And I think that it takes someone who's an independent thinker, a progressive consensus builder to be able to do those things. And that's where I fit in. That's why one of the reasons why I'm running, because I fit in that piece of the puzzle for someone who can help move the agenda forward on a lot of different areas. Any other questions we had? I saw there was another one that came up, and I missed what it said. Hello, how are you getting your name out to the public? Well, this is one of the ways I'm getting my name out to the public. Hopefully, you all who are participating, you spread the word. We're going to be doing some mailers, so we'll need some help getting mailers together. We're going to be calling people, so if you want to help do some phone banking, you can go to the website www.akilkhalfani.com and register there for participating, and then we'll reach out to you. You can also go on there and you can donate. You can send out the message for these Thursday chats. Send them to your friends, your family, people you know in the district, or if you're in any groups on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. If you're on any groups, forward it out to people so they can come in and join us for these discussions. You can send messages on those same platforms or others. Maybe there's platforms I don't know. Maybe somebody wants to do a positive TikTok video for our campaign. Let me know. We need all the support we can get. This is not the Akil Khalfani movement. This is the people's movement. And I happen to be the candidate that's running to support the voices of the voiceless, the voices of the people. And we're collectively going to come together to push this movement and this mission forward. So I'm asking you to join me and come on along so that we can do this collectively. But we've got to come and we got to come strong and realize that we're going to get a lot of pushback from the current elected officials. And so we can only be successful if you all are helping to work this movement and move it forward. So we need support. We need financial support. We need your dollars. So if you can contribute $5, $10, $100, $1,000, whatever you can contribute to help us do this, we need thousands of dollars to beat the incumbent and to get our voice out there to be heard. So if you know ways to raise money, if you know if you have money to donate, or you know other people who can, those things are all helpful that we could use, and we're looking for your support to make that happen. It's 8:42. If there's any kind of closing questions before we wrap up today, I'd be glad to take them, and I'm thankful for your time and your ear. But this is a movement we're going to be continuing to address. We're going to continue to look for your insights on the ways that you think that we can not only win the election, but be successful in getting the legislation passed once we get on the other side. So if you have a tweak for something we're talking about on healthcare, or on education, or on reparations, you have a slightly different idea about those things, let us know, and we would be glad to listen. This is a listening campaign, and we're looking to bring the voices and ideas of the masses to the forefront. And that's about taking those ideas and bringing them together, coalescing them, and then creating the synergy of a singular message that moves things forward. So this is Akil Khalfani. Our website is akilkhalfani.com. Our message is I rock with Doc. And the reason we use that is that we want you to know that we want you to rock with us. That is that this movement is coming like a rock. And we're using the force and power of that rock to move things out of our way. And that we're coming together, and we're going to be as solid as a rock, and no one is going to be able to divide and conquer us in the process, because we are pulling together the type of movement that has the force, the momentum of change, and that change is moving powerfully through all the things that are trying to block it. When you have a rock that's moving, that you have force behind you. When you have a rock, you also got rhythm. When you say whether it's rock and roll or uh, you know uh, rocking with somebody, that there's a momentum and a rhythm with that, and we want to make sure that you all know that we're looking for your rhythm, your support, and join us. And if you're with us, put in the chat, put "I rock with Doc," and then come rock with us. Well, I'm going to end with that for tonight. This is Dr. Khalfani, and we are here running for the 10th Congressional District in the state of New Jersey for U.S. Congress. This is the People's Campaign, and I'm the People's candidate, and we are the voice of the voiceless. But the voiceless will no longer be voiceless because we're bringing that voice to Congress. And so come join us, bring your thoughts and ideas as we push the agenda. We will be back here next week at 8 o'clock on Thursday with a new issue that we're going to be addressing. And it's going to be your issue. It's going to be our issue. Thank you very much, and have a good night.